Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Building Doctor Show. I'm Jens Johansson, your host, and glad to see you here to learn more about your buildings today. Today, we're talking about kind of the current trend of shifting responsibility back to the building owners for previously thought about common elements and limited common elements like windows, decks, walkways, roof, maybe even some siding. And this show today is going to cover why we think that's potentially a bad idea, which will, may lead to more damage, more problems, and definitely more infighting between residents and ultimately the association. So, why is this happening? Making the owners responsible for their own stuff, primarily so we can reduce assessments. Do these costs really go down? Paying under a community-wide assessment for my windows versus paying for my windows myself? Not really. And the exposure and problems will go up. So buckle up. This is going to be a sensitive, hot topic show. We have lots of current clients considering this, working with lots of attorneys and managers that are considering this. And frankly, I expect a whole bunch of, but my association's different and here's why we should do it. It's like, okay, we'll talk about that. So remember, this show is for educational content only. We're not giving legal, engineering, and financial advice. So let's dig into it. Let's turn off the good background music there. Oh, great. Well, we got to do it again. All right, let's get into it. So this big shift we're seeing, or this big trend we're seeing, shifting liability to the owners. Why the building envelope is different than your interior elements. When does a board or a neighbor become liable for these types of things? Good documentation, helps us prevent disputes. How consultants can help you protect the HOA, and then updating your CC&Rs, what to watch for. So, like any show, put your questions into the Q&A section. You'll see some chat elements. We're going to be putting in lots of past show links, lots of guides, lots of stuff. So keep that chat channel open, and of course, stick around for the free giveaways. So here's the scenario. Roof turns into or window leaks turn into an association-wide assessment. We can substitute roof or decks or like that. So window leaks turn into an association-wide assessment and repair project. So windows are usually common elements. Look for the word glass in your documents. Some residents have retrofitted their windows already, and who knows how they did it? Who knows how the contractor did it? Did they have a contract? Is the contractor insured for working on condominiums? There's some things you got to worry about there. Some people think their old windows are fine, and I've never met a unit owner. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most unit owners don't think their windows leak, or at least leak to the inside, because it's hard to see, right? So unless the sill is swollen, but the exterior leaks, and I'm giving you the dimension of a 2x6 wall. The exterior window leaks show up on the exterior sheathing first, and they work their way into the framing, then into the drywall and the trim and things like that. So the trend right now is to shift from HOA to individual owners, make them fix and maintain their own windows when they want to, when they can afford to. We don't care how you do it. Make it their problem to reduce our monthly fees. So now here goes Jens again harping on windows, but from an engineer's perspective, windows are nothing more than a hole in the wall that leak. Glass replacement, that's why I said look for glass in your building documents. Glass replacement is different than window frame replacement that's nailed to the framing and covered in cladding and all that stuff, properly waterproofed. So another scenario to think about is that's similar. We have always had the tub or toilet overflow in the third floor unit that flooded the second and first floors. And dealing with the 3 resident policies and 3 deductibles and who pays for what. If you've been through that, that's a nightmare. So these kind of things, toilets leak and bathtubs leak, these have been contemplated in the insurance company's mind or policy fees forever. I know it's a 3-story building. I'm giving you insurance on that. You live on the 3rd floor, you could flood the second, first floor. But, so I call these were anticipated accidents in the past. So now we're going to have windows and decks doing the same thing, affecting units below them. So lots more contractor and owner to owner claims and potentially holes in coverage. So if we had our ordinary residential policy, did your toilet leak? Yeah, it's covered. Did your window leak and now damage the other people's windows below you? No, that's not in the resident policy. We cover paint to paint inside. We don't cover exterior because that's usually a community association or a master policy. So you might have some holes in this. So anyway, something to think about. We'll cover that. Again, some boards think this is a great idea. You can lower the monthly dues, lower the assessments, lower some of the reserve costs. We can reduce some maintenance costs and responsibility. It's now your issue to maintain it. Go have fun. But it's risky. We get inconsistent installs and usually no maintenance. We have deferred repairs because my windows don't leak, they're fine. And we have lack of installation uniformity and quality. I found a cheaper guy to do it. I didn't necessarily do it right. They had good Google reviews, or he's my brother-in-law. He's a good contractor. Well, he didn't quite do it right. So we get this. All boards are under pressure to reduce monthly dues and not starting new assessments because, frankly, we haven't paid off the last assessment from 3 years ago. All budgets are tight. Lots of reserves are low. Layoffs are happening, and we can't sell because our dues are so high. However, we're seeing among these other current topics, communities are under pressure from insurance renewals, changing mortgage laws, changing reserve study laws. So that reserve study, Building Insights in under a minute, that link will be in the chat. If you haven't signed up for that, Building Insights in under a minute is a 1-page, takes you 60 seconds to read. It's put out as I come across these things. And I just did a one on reserve study. Federal standards are changing there. So take a look for that. And so building envelope, why is it different? The building envelope is your roof, your walls, and the whole thing that separates the exterior from the interior, keeps the interior things like heating and cooling inside, keeps the weather from the outside. And so it's this barrier, and it's integrated real well. And so one failure impacts multiple units because water flows downhill, down from 3 stories, 2 stories, first floor. Water gets under a roof membrane and flows that way. Water gets under a deck membrane and flows that way, depending on the membranes. So it's a big, complicated system, highly integrated to work really well. Don't let others cut holes in it and meddle with it. That's why you want an architect or an engineer to do that. So kind of a good test or thought process for you is what components are actually nailed to the framing and then covered with siding and trim. So it's kind of baked into the system. Does that siding and trim need to get removed and pulled back so that the new product is properly interfaced and connected to the old system? I'm supposed to replace my windows now, but I can't touch the siding because the siding's a common element. So you're telling me I have to replace my window, but I can't disturb or pull back the siding to put a proper window installation in. So now I've got a conflict. I'm supposed to replace my windows, and I know that's the caulking around my windows, but what about the caulking around my door? What about the caulking around my deck? What about the caulking over there that I can see on my wall? Are you doing that caulking and I'm doing this caulking? That's kind of weird. So we get into some little kind of maintenance. A lot of these things are connected. Okay, here's some good pictures. So the right side, let's start with this one first. We see this third floor window under the plastic. We obviously have water trails. This is the exterior water I was talking about. Oh, my windows don't leak. What are you talking about? Well, starts here, runs down. Now that I'm behind the building paper, here the building paper Tyvek has been pulled off. Here's the weather barricade wrap or whose ever brand it is. But you can see now I'm behind this system. Now I can get behind this flashing. So this window leak actually comes out the head of the second floor window. Now it looks like it rolls around that window, but maybe this window adds to the window leaks because it's not installed correctly. So third floor, second floor adds to it. Now I get a whole bunch here on the first floor leaking down and getting in behind. So if this person replaces their windows wrong, now I have this damage to the sheathing. You're not making me responsible for the sheathing, but because I did something wrong here, I've damaged the common element of the building. Now I'm damaging their windows. They are falsely assuming they need to replace their windows because the head of my window's leaking. So then they spend a bunch of money on new windows that they didn't have to. You can see where it's going, right? So now you can see some vents leaking. Did I put in a new dryer vent? Did I put in a new air conditioning ductwork exhaust vent and do it wrong? So now this vent is leaking down to this person's unit and damaging this association common element. Let's go over to the left side. These decks have been removed. So here's sliding glass doors. Here's patio deck storage unit rooms. So you can see water leaking under the deck storage room door. No sill pan. Water leaking under the sliding glass door. No sill pan. That water now drains into this person's unit. You can see this. Now we get patchwork quilt that I'll talk about later. Original aluminum brown windows. Hey, new vinyl, almond windows. So then this person at least matched the almond windows. But now I start getting this building that looks like a patchwork quilt. But this deck membrane somehow leaking. So his deck membrane is now damaging my deck membrane. And both of your deck membranes are now damaging my deck membrane. You can see how the water is flowing downhill and the damage just gets worse and worse on the first floor. So maybe I don't want to live on the first floor anymore. Okay, who knows? But you can kind of see how this trickles down the building. So if somebody does it wrong on top, it's going to flow all the way down. Here's another example of windows. You can see the water leaks coming through the third floor window. We can see some water leaking on the stained building paper. It's all wrinkly and we got some white and things like that coming out of it. But is this damage a result of this, or is this damage a result of these? Bottom line, all that water is going to flow down to this unit, and we're going to have even more problems. Looking over here, somebody didn't do their deck membrane flashing right, so it's damaging the rim joist that goes all the way over to your deck, or it's damaging the wall that goes down below it. So letting people do their own thing will cause some problems. So again, patchwork quilt, imagine if this was aluminum, imagine if this was white vinyl, imagine if this was almond vinyl, imagine if this was black fiberglass window frames. If you're letting them do it, are you giving them consistent standards, a building standard set? If you're going to replace your windows, use this product, this color, this shape and profile. Are we going to, all these lower sashes are uniform? Well, if that person puts in a casement window that opens out, that person puts in, something else. Now all of a sudden we have this mixy matchy patchwork quilt that I'm talking about. More deck stuff. Somebody didn't do their deck flashings and corner transitions right, so it damaged their deck. But more importantly, it came down and damaged this person's walls, even under their deck. This person's deck flashings up here aren't done right, so they leak down into this deck. So your deck is the person below you's ceiling, right? So here we go. Here's a deck. Why does the ceiling or soffit of my area is all black and nasty? Why is it dripping? So here's another deck instance of railings and flashings and drippage and damaged soffits. And so this is what we're talking about. If I let somebody work above me, they do it wrong or do it inconsistently or they don't maintain it, now it affects mine. And so it's causing problems. So when does a board become liable? We've talked about some board liability in the past. So situations that increase risk, ignoring known issues or failing to act, negligence or lack of due diligence, changing the rules that make things worse. So can changing the rules make a board responsible? Who knows? So then we have a duty of care, and that's identified as acting reasonably in good faith and in the best interest of the association. So is it in the best faith of the association to cause a whole bunch of mayhem and fighting between owners? Weird. Okay. So, but we know boards are protected by D&O insurance policies. So, okay, if they act reasonable and act in good faith and do the right thing, they should have some coverage for these types of things under a D&O policy. And then there's boards are supposed to listen to proper guidance and good consultants and take expert advice and run with it. So when do the residents become liable? Well, I think they're going to become liable when their work affects other residents and starts damaging other units. Now we get into this stuff. So let's talk about that. So does it make sense to shift this risk? And so that left column is the board. Hey, the board is 4 or 5 people that meet regularly and discuss HOA business from a holistic perspective. They are mentored by managers and get to interview consultants, contractors, and lawyers. They manage the reserves and the maintenance of the community. They're thinking big picture. The residents, they're owners of each individual unit. And 9 out of 10 of them moved into a condo to not have to worry about maintaining a house anymore. Every owner has a different perspective on maintenance. I didn't know what to look for. I didn't get advice from consultants and contractors. I'm not spending a couple hours every month talking about this stuff. Every owner has a different perspective on what's right or wrong. Those windows are fine. That old cracked stucco is great. Every owner will seek their own contractor to do their own work. And so we have a scale of efficiency or economies of scale. We'll talk about that. So does it make sense to shift this? So owners don't understand maintenance and what is common or limited. Remember my view on sealant? I've got my caulk gun out. I know I'm supposed to caulk my windows. What about that? Well, I've got it out. I'm just going to caulk it. Well, did you caulk the drainage gap? Did you fill something you weren't supposed to? Put down the caulk gun, walk away. Or I'm out here fixing this. I see that's cracked. I should probably take care of that. Instead of a uniform recalking process, one kind of sealant, the right kind of sealant, it could be painted, it could, do all those things. Owners really only care about mine versus theirs. My siding stops right here. I'm going to paint to this line. And then the rest of the painting, that's your problem. Patchwork quilt. My windows are this. My roof or deck is this. And the other stuff is yours. You got to deal with it. I had to pay for mine. You got to pay for yours. So, and then they aren't mentored by managers and other experts. They aren't protected by board D&O policies. So if they did something wrong, there's no standardized policy for their mistake. All right. Developer agreements often recognize the first buyer or the HOA by statute. So most developer warranties will run with the first buyer. They may be giving a lifetime warranty on your windows. Well, the first buyer moves after a year, and the second buyer doesn't get that warranty anymore. We have shifting responsibility, often comes with liability. Is that thought out with these new shifted changes? A crazy question. Do only top floor units have to pay for the roof now? Because first and second floor, they don't have a roof above. I mean, it's not leaking into my unit. So that's kind of scary. And then you get the concept of one contractor. I got one chest to poke. I got one throat to choke with one contractor and warranty related items versus if I'm in 100-unit thing, 100-unit project, I'm going to have 100 window replacement projects with 100 different contractors. I'm going to have constant saws and noise and dumpsters and work trucks in the community versus one time for a period of months and it's over and we don't have to deal with it for another 20 years. Now I've got all these things happening. How do we make them do the work? Hey, your windows need to get replaced. Your caulking needs to get replaced. Am I going to penalize them? Am I going to fine them? Now I'm a police state and I'm going to be fining and penalizing and you got to replace your windows. Who says I have to replace my windows? So if you're going to design this, if you're going to change your CC&Rs, let's talk about this stuff. Then obvious problems. We've got under the old plan, we've got a holistic repair versus 100 one-offs. We've got expensive small repairs versus economies of scale. And what I mean there is first floor windows are really easy to replace. Third floor windows need scaffolding. Is every third floor window going to have to set up one little tower of scaffolding to get the work done? Whew, that's going to, we don't have economies of scale there. We have too many warranties and contract documents and liabilities to even track. We have owners damaging other owners and more internal disputes. We have no loan availability for these single jobs. It's now just up to the resident and, a second line of credit or whatever. We're getting into insurance and mortgage questions. And so 2025 to 2027 saw some big pending things coming down. Insurance company questions of renewal, coverage for the whole community. Why would an insurance company, and here's how they've rejected that we've seen, why would they cover the whole community when half the windows are old and leaking and the other half are new but poorly done and leaking? They don't want to get any claims of leaks. They don't care or cover on who is responsible for what. They're trying to sell a master policy, and you're changing your CC&Rs now and making you this different thing that they aren't used to, and it gives them, we're not going to renew, or we're going to double or triple your insurance premiums. So then we have different insurance policies. We've always had the master, the resident, and the contractor policy. And those three kind of have some overlapping things. We have a guide on that. But now we're going to have neighbor coverage. So did you install something that damaged your neighbor? And the neighbor get insurance from your potential damage? I haven't seen that in the marketplace. So what's going to happen there? So reserve studies, again, view windows as a whole community issue that are constantly aging, need replacement after 20 years. Now, how are you going to do your reserve study with that one is 2 years old and that one's 4 years old? And that, can we take it all the way out because it's an owner responsibility? I don't know. So you better tune that up. So maintenance problems and timelines. Do clients understand sealant needs to be replaced every 7 to 10 years? Deck membranes every 5 to 10 years. Does everybody know that? Is that widespread or do we have to tell them? We're going to have more seller buyer disputes. The seller is going to quickly replace their windows, sell the buyer, hey, I got new windows. Didn't have a contract because the seller did the contract with the window guy. So now they don't have a contract, and then their bad window install leaks down below, and now they're getting sued because what the seller did. So now we're going to have a whole bunch of buyer-seller arguments. Again, we're going to have coverage questions between the different policies now that we add this neighbor potential risk. We're going to have more expenses with more inspections and details. Patchwork quilt aesthetics. So these are some things that are floating around. The other kind of big change is the mortgage do not finance here list. The mortgage do not do a mortgage on this community. And so the Florida condo collapse was due to ignored maintenance, making everyone responsible for maintenance. We're really going to make lenders nervous. And so it'll be like, oh, wow, your CC&Rs are so different than what we're used to seeing. We can't issue a standard Fannie Mae bank package on your community. No. And so you can Google some of those mortgage standards. Actually, we have some stuff on that. So if this trend of changing responsibility and opening up all these things, we're going to see more insurance and mortgage law changes to address these shifts. Maybe we'll see different insurance vehicles that you can buy, but I have a feeling it's going to start with digging heels in and saying, don't loan there, don't renew there. All right, so updating CC&Rs, what to watch for. So before shifting all this stuff, define maintenance versus repair versus replacement, clarify boundaries, who owns what, consider downstream impacts, no pun intended, water flows downstream. Consider normal insurance policy coverages between overlapping policies, rules, or even vision on community aesthetics. That's the patchwork quilt. And then just rules or guidelines for maintenance and compliance. Just saying you're responsible for windows now doesn't really give me good clarity on what kind of windows, what type of windows, sealants, maintenance, repairs, all that stuff. All right. Updating more stuff, common mistakes, vague language, no enforcement of this. I don't want to overstep the bounds, or I don't want to be mean. So we just have no enforcement. We have the rules, but there's no enforcement. Ignoring shared systems, meaning how do we track all this stuff? What is required and left up to judgment? So just align your legal documents with physical realities of the building. Use an attorney that specializes in HOAs, CC&Rs, that can think through this stuff. Send them this show. And it's just things I'm raising. Here's what we're going to see. So action plan for HOA boards. If you can do these 8 things, you take nothing else from this episode, do these 8 things. Talk to your insurance broker, your reserve specialist, your consultant, and your attorney. So conduct a responsibility reality check. Are people going to really be responsible for these things? Is the 75-year-old unit owner going to even know where to start on how to replace their windows, how to maintain their windows, how to do this stuff? So identify high risk shared components. We've got A deck ties into the siding, a window ties into siding, a roof ties into several of these things. Start a documentation system if there is none yet, because the association's going to be doing their share of reports, but you want copies of their contract and their insurance policy and their stuff. So if they move out, a new buyer, you can grab that. You can find out when those windows were fixed and replaced. So again, 100 units, it's going to have 100 window replacement projects. It's going to have 95 because 5 aren't going to do them. But you're going to have the letters to the 5 saying it is time for you to do your windows, and we're going to start finding you. See what I mean? Get this stuff figured out in a place. Do a building envelope inspection. Understand what the baseline is today. Here's what the building looks like. That damage didn't come from their new windows that are going to be installed next month. It was here before they started, right? Okay, so then review and update CC&Rs. This is a big vote. Everybody thinks, well, we can just update our CC&Rs. So big vote level to change can range from 67 to 90%, depending upon what you're changing. This vote is usually an all yes. It is not in the negative vote. Budgets are often passed in the sense of here's our proposed budget. If 67% of you vote it down, we will not pass that budget. But in reality, 25% of you show up at the meeting, cast your nay vote. It's not 67%. So therefore it's approved. So that's a negative vote, or a vote in the negative. These bylaw changes require at least 67%, if not 90. So do you have 60 to 90% attendance and voting in your community? Are you going to have the community that's really with it and really on top of it? Are you going to have a few people that says this is nonsense, I'm not voting on that? Or I like just paying an assessment, being done with it. I don't want to coordinate contractors. I didn't move into a condo to do that. I left my house so I wouldn't have to talk to contractors ever again. So implement a maintenance plan. Here's what we expect you to do for the things you own. Here's what we are going to do in association for the common elements we still manage. Here's how they work together. We use this type of sealant. We expect you to use the same type so we don't have different colors and different styles. And this fails faster than this because it's 99 cents a tube and the stuff we use is $10 a tube. And so you want some rules in there. You want a book of details. If you're going to replace these windows, follow these details. If you're going to, here's what you can use, here's what you can't use. So that's the maintenance and kind of construction plan. Create a reporting system so people can kind of report in. We'll talk about that in a second. And then just verify insurance alignment. Make sure it makes sense that here's what we're going to change to. Do we even have coverage for that? Is it possible to get coverage for that? So make sure there's insurance support. So let's break these down. Conduct a responsibility reality check. Just review your CC&Rs and reserve study. List your components out. Who maintains it, who repairs it, who replaces it. Avoid you're just in charge, have fun. Just avoid the vague or contradictory stuff. If you have that, there can be future litigation. I said there will be future litigation. Okay. Walk the community and report and review reports and flag these items. Hey, windows and sliding glass doors. That I can tell that person's windows are leaking. The siding is all messed up under them. Make them fix it. Well, I got to have a system to do that. Same with the experts. You can kind of ask, does it impact or affect more than one unit? So communities are case by case, and some are easier and some are more complicated. Obviously, we're talking about stacked units. If we have a row of townhomes, okay, water isn't going to affect units below you. So just think through your high risk things. And if any of these are yes, you really should get some more attention to really think through that. Documentation system. Here's that centralized system I was talking about. We've got inspection reports, we've got photos and videos, we've got maintenance history, we've got board decisions, meeting minutes. Every known issue should have a date, photos, an action taken or deferred and why. This becomes your insurance file or your defense. But who manages and maintains it? Where does it live? Who has access to it? How does it get passed down to the next board? Well, that was on this board president's computer and they moved out or they died. Well, got a history there. So it's a cloud link. It's somebody can get it. Maybe it's in the manager's system or the portal, but you can see we need more portal-y stuff. We need more management of this potentially arbitrary decision to just shift responsibility. Okay, do a building envelope inspection, look for that baseline condition, identify remaining useful life issues, immediate risks, kind of maintenance plan. You can't claim you did due diligence if you don't actually do it and know the condition of it. So here's the review and update your CC&Rs, clear definitions on these three topics, and then access rights. Can the HOA come and inspect the stuff you did? Do you want to make the HOA responsible for inspecting the work? What's the enforcement system? What's the standard of care for owners? I believe there will be a link in the chat for that stuff. Now, implement a maintenance plan. We've got schedule, we've got annual, we've got cycles, we've got inspections and recodings. We've got, again, roof reviews. And was this an overflowing gutter that just had too many leaves in it that caused these leaks? Was it done wrong? So deferred maintenance leads to damage and liability. We want to make sure we're still doing our maintenance plan, even though we delegated some of that stuff. There's still the rest of the building here. We still have to do this. We still got to pay attention to it. And arguably, we might have to pay attention to it more because it's not holistic. It's items 1 through 7 out of 10. And so we really have to be specific. Okay, creating that reporting system. Residents are going to be reporting. Management's going to be reporting. Consultants are reporting. Board is reporting. Compare that to just the reports you have. We gave you some ideas. Emails are a pain to track, but that portal idea or the online form or some kind of system to be able to track what's happening. So obviously we want to catch issues when they're small, not big. And then verify that insurance alignment. So again, the HOA master policy we've always had. The owner policy, the HO6 we've always had. The resident, that's the resident policy. The contractor policies we've always had. Is there gonna be coverage for if I install windows and I end up damaging floors 2 and 1, or is that the contractor is responsible for damaging floors 2 and 1? Does he have additional coverage for his non-contracted, it's called contract privity. The contractor to install your windows has a contract with you, doesn't have a contract with your neighbor. So we might need to make them aware of that. We might need to, the association may be involved because the association is still owning the sheathing. You saw from those photos, the water came in, the sheathing got damaged. Now we got water leaks in the second floor and first floor. Oof, it's just going to be a make work thing for lawyers and consultants to determine who did what. But this is what I'm worried about. So what I want you to think on. There should be some stuff in the chat, and there's when we did a show about HOA master policies, that's there. So key takeaways. You can shift responsibility, but risk often remains. So again, seek good counsel that has experience in CC&Rs and HOA management. So what do we mean by this? Go back to science class, Newton's law of conservation of energy. Energy is not created or destroyed. It is only shifted. So J2's contract law of risk. Risk is not created or destroyed. It is only shifted. So in regards to this topic, the association is shifting risks to residents, and there will be liability and risk moving around to various parties. We just don't fully know who yet. So do your best and work with your attorney to kind of put blockers on each one of those leak spots and make sure it goes in the right direction. So building envelope issues affect several owners. We all share this. It is the most common element you can be. And when you're taking little pieces out of it, like windows and decks, and making those resident responsibility, woo, be careful. Documentation and due diligence are keys and should be managed well and handed down or passed on. Where does this live? How do we maintain access to this? Building consultants help protect, not just repair. So this is the point of this webinar. Please think about these things. So obviously, here's my link for those of you who like to type learn.j2consultants.com/consultant-on-call, or take your little scanner, scan that QR code and say 15-minute free call. Come talk to me about your buildings. So let's jump into Q&As. And we have a couple of questions. When people saw the announcements, hey, next week we're talking about this, boom, we got a couple of questions instantly. So put those questions into the Q&A. I see a couple in there already. So let's get on to the pre-formed questions. If our CC&Rs say owners are responsible for their windows or decks, but we know poor maintenance could damage other units, what's the board supposed to do? Do we step in or do we risk overstepping? So that's exactly what the show is about. So that big step that we talked about of revising CC&Rs is a big vote, and it's a high vote. But listen to the theme. Why are we really wanting to do that? Is it just to reduce fees for some kind of short-term relief? It's kind of the wrong theme. And that's a symptom of we didn't have our reserves set at the right place. And we find ourselves in a financial pickle. And so we're just trying to make everybody else pay for it. So is it short-term relief, or is it a well thought out plan that benefits the community? So that's kind of the first response. But you in this revision have to create the rules and systems to be followed. So you have the authority to step in or not. And so your fear of overstepping goes away if the process is clear. But also, think of other things that you do. You set a budget 12 months in advance. So today I'm setting this year budget. I'm making a guess. I'm doing the best I can. Under all these scenarios, it seems like it will work well. So this is another one of those scenarios. It sounds good. We're going to do our best to implement this, but give yourself the ability to change it if it doesn't work out. And so the board has a subjective right to change this if we run into problems. And this is going to be a learning and growth moment because, like I said, it's forecast or best guess for the next 2 to 5 years before we start seeing the problems of, that window replacement that happened above me is even cheap caulk's going to last 6 months or a year. Medium caulk's going to last 2 years. And so in a couple of years, I'm going to start seeing leaks and I'm going to start getting frustrated. And that's when those problems happen. So hire an attorney experienced in this. So we'll share these experiences that we're learning on future shows. So stay tuned to this stuff. So do we step in? I would design the system and the process so that you can. Risk overstepping is, hey, I don't want to be the police community where I'm walking around and putting a note on somebody's door. You have to replace your window. So anyway, that's one of the problems there. So next question. We're considering updating our CC&R to shift more responsibility to owners. What are the biggest mistakes or concerns that we should avoid when doing this? And how do we avoid creating bigger problems down the road? Hopefully we've addressed a lot of these answers in the show. And I want to take a moment and say, please don't get me wrong. We are not against you changing the rules or shifting responsibility. These are your rules and your community. Do what you want. but please be careful and think about the secondary and tertiary steps or effects and how that could cause more problems down the road. So in single family homes, the old phrase is tall fences make good neighbors. The intent of the democratic process or the group decision making of a board for the entire community is a good method. Can it be flawed? Sure. But it usually works pretty well if done right, as opposed to everybody doing their own thing. And this is what's keeping me awake at night, going, oh wow, we're gonna see a whole bunch of more water damage claims, a whole bunch more resident fighting with residents. You did something that caused damage to me and I'm mad about it. And is there even insurance for that? And so get ready, brace yourself, hold on. So these are again, go through this process, go through this system, think about your case by case. Your community's different, everybody's is different. So it's case by case. What are the most important things that are going to affect here? How are those changes going to affect potential changes? And again, that gets into lawyer stuff. But you also need to take this to a vote. You've got to get everybody excited about it because you're going to need at least 67% of the people saying, yes, I want to do that. And I expect some just average normal pushback for people. I don't want to caulk stuff. I don't want to replace my windows. Just send me a bill. So that's going to be a good challenge. So, all right, let's jump into the Q&As. I see we've got a couple. Get them in there real quick if you want them. Okay. If we've already shifted responsibility to owners, what's the first thing we should review to make sure we're not still exposed? I would go back and review your responsibility shifting and just say, was I clear about it? Was I vague in any way? Did I leave anything open to interpretation? What do we need to do to kind of lock this down? And then, like I said, you're watching it. So we're watching this boiling pot. Do I need to make adjustments to the temperature after we start getting, why are we getting this issue? Why are we getting that issue? And again, I think one of the best things is to have a guide or a plan set. Here is the binder. Here is the binder or the documents. If you want to replace your windows, follow this plan. It doesn't have to be super complicated, but here's the window brand or the window style or the 3 brands you can choose from or the colors or here's the sealant we want you to use. Here's the siding. Here's some basic details that even a non-experienced contractor can follow and do right. Here's what we expect the common elements to be restored to. You can pull the sheets back on the bed to tuck the pillow underneath it and put the sheets back on. That's pull the siding off to be able to properly install the window and put the siding back on. But we don't want this ugly scar around your windows either. So here's enough of a roadmap for you to follow reasonably, and then we adjust as we go. But yeah, that's what I would start with, and then I just respond to the leaks or issues as they come up. Okay, next issue. What is your recommendation for flat top roof cleaning of leaves and debris and AC repair replacement work leaving behind old materials, including screws? Yes, the roof type is membrane with small pebbles on it. Okay, so cleaning, any kind of cleaning, you're blowing it off, you're sweeping it off, you're cleaning it up, you're cleaning the pine needles and leaves out of the gutters and scuppers and drains. You're just getting it clean. Your roof type with small pebbles on it. So that there's a couple different types there. Small rocks are called ballast. And so we used it as weight to hold the membrane down. We also used it as a UV layer. The rocks didn't get affected by the sun, which protected the membrane underneath it. A little harder to clean, but we've seen where they will scrape back the rocks wash it down, clean it up, re-push the rocks back on. You can also look at the membrane when you're doing that. AC repair replacement and dropping screws and dropping drills and dropping razor knives, and it cuts the membrane. Classic example of contractor on site, sloppy, damages something, and now it leaks. Or now, and so being able to document each repair. So that's kind of part of that reporting thing. There's somebody on the board or working for the association that's documenting association work, and there's somebody documenting the owner's work. So who did what? The last contractor on site was that guy, and we have photos before they were on site. It's like their vans, which van dimpled the soffit because his ladder was too tall. So think about how you record that stuff and document that stuff and make sure the responsible party fixes it. Okay, when we get a consultant report, what should we be doing with it to actually protect ourselves and not just follow the way? Read it, read it, talk about it, discuss it. That's in the board meeting. Have your consultant attend and explain to you, hey, it's a big complex report. Let me boil it down. Here's the headlines. Here's the cliff notes. Here's what you really have to worry about. That technically should be in their executive summary. Here's a very high level, for reporting standards. If it's not, that's how some of the engineers in that Florida collapse got blamed for liability, because they buried some of these safety issues on page 37 or 97, and people just didn't even see it. So being clear, talking about it, calling the consultant back if you got questions. What does this mean? I'm a little confused by this. And then implementing it into your maintenance plan, your repair plan, your things like that. So that's how to handle that. Okay, that's all for the questions. Let's jump into the giveaways. There we go. What are we giving away? It's springtime. Everybody needs mosquito repellent. We can even put a J2 sticker on it. So it's J2 mosquito repellent. It's one of those thermocells that has a battery. You put it out your patio. You could take your journal and your pen and write down what your consultant report said, how to figure that into the board meeting minutes. Okay, number 4. Number 4 wins it. How you get signed in is when you sign on. Your number 4 of the sign in. Carolyn will reach out to you, get your address, and send that out to you. All right. We have free and paid training for boards and managers. So if you're a new manager and you're a new board member, there's plenty of free training, YouTube, website, social media, this Building Doctor Show, Building Insights in under a minute, our emails. And if you want to talk about paid stuff, normally we focus on buildings, but if you want us to meet with your board and just talk for a day, we can put together some materials for you and help you with that. And stream this wherever you go. We're on every platform. And thanks for tuning in. So, again, here's the link for my information. But stay tuned for next month, because we have a couple of topics. We've got attic mold and a real interesting one brewing. Town hall brawls and board coups. That's going to be fun. So, thanks for watching. You guys are great. Thanks for the questions. And see you next time.